Imagine this scenario. It's 7:42 in the evening on an ordinary Tuesday. You're browsing through your smartphone when, without warning, click. Complete darkness envelops everything. Total quiet. Your internet router's lights vanish. Your refrigerator's constant hum ceases. And in that instant of blackness, a terrifying realization hits you. You're completely clueless about your next move. But here's what distinguishes those who make it through from those who don't in an electrical emergency. It isn't chance. It isn't hopeful expectations. It's 9 particular principles that transform disorder into organization, fear into confidence. Because while those around you fumble helplessly in pitch darkness, debating about depleted cellular batteries, you'll be following a strategy that might genuinely preserve your existence. The average person assumes a blackout represents merely a minor hassle. They're mistaken, fatally mistaken. During Hurricane Sandy's assault on New York in 2012, fatalities resulted not from violent winds or flooding, but from toxic gas exposure, freezing temperatures, and fluid deprivation. Every single one avoidable. Every single one occurring because people weren't aware of these principles. So if your goal is remaining composed while everyone surrounding you descends into madness, continue watching, because what I'm preparing to reveal isn't simply survival guidance, it's your protection against becoming another tragedy statistic. Let me explain why the majority fail disastrously when electrical service terminates. They approach power failures like a brief interruption in their regular existence. They remain idle, expecting others to resolve it. They presume assistance will arrive. They exhaust their smartphone charge, broadcasting on digital platforms about how insane this situation is. All the while, time marches forward. And here's the unforgiving truth most individuals fail to grasp. Contemporary civilization stands precisely 3 days from total collapse without electrical power. 3 days. That's the duration before supermarkets deplete their inventory, fuel stations cease operations, and municipal water systems malfunction. The 2021 Texas winter storm demonstrated this. When their electrical network failed, citizens were melting frozen precipitation for potable water, igniting household furniture for warmth, and some perished from cold exposure inside their own dwellings, in America, in modern times, because they believed others would manage it. But here's what the ready survivors executed differently. They maintained procedures. They possessed strategies. They had rehearsed these precise 9 principles I'm preparing to reveal to you. And while those nearby were dialing emergency services hoping for salvation, they were already multiple steps advanced. The reality is, during a widespread blackout, you're alone. Emergency response teams become inundated. Law enforcement cannot address every request. Medical facilities operate on emergency power that won't sustain indefinitely. The rescue forces aren't arriving to save you. You must save yourself. And that begins with recognizing that the initial 30 minutes following the power failure are absolutely crucial. Your actions in those initial 30 minutes establish whether you're someone who survives or a statistic, whether you seize control or surrender it entirely. So let's explore principle number 1, because mishandling this could forfeit everything. Principle number 1, execute the 3-minute illumination protocol immediately. Not later, not whenever convenient, immediately. Here's why this carries more significance than you realize. When darkness strikes unexpectedly, 3 occurrences happen concurrently. Fear multiplies, mishaps increase, and opportunists begin prowling. Yes, opportunists, because when illumination disappears, the predators emerge to operate. But the majority waste valuable minutes searching for their cellular device, flashlight, stumbling over household items, and attempting to determine if this affects just their neighborhood or extends further. By the moment they organize themselves, they've already forfeited the mental edge. The 3-minute protocol works like this. You possess exactly 3 minutes to establish total lighting management throughout your complete residence, not merely one chamber, every chamber that holds importance. Here's your implementation sequence. Secure your main flashlight, which ought to be easily accessible from wherever you occupy most of your time. That's your primary light. Employ it to move toward your illumination positions. Correct, positions. You ought to maintain backup lighting locations strategically positioned throughout your dwelling. Battery-operated lanterns in the main room, food preparation area, and primary sleeping chamber. Chemical light sticks in the washrooms because they're moisture-resistant and function for extended periods.
But here's the sophisticated technique most individuals overlook. After you illuminate your interior, you must manage your exterior exposure. Pull every window covering, lower every shade, obscure every window. Because during a widespread blackout, a brilliantly illuminated dwelling resembles a glowing advertisement that announces, "We possess resources, come seize them." The mental effect of managed lighting is enormous. When you maintain clear vision while disorder engulfs you, you instinctively become the authority figure. Your household turns to you for direction. Your thinking remains focused. Your judgment improves. You've conquered the initial challenge before most individuals even recognize they're engaged in a struggle. Time verification. If you've executed this correctly, it's been 3 minutes since the power terminated, and you're already functioning from a position of advantage while those nearby are still questioning, "Dear, where's the flashlight?" Principle number 2. Deploy the water stronghold strategy within 10 minutes of power termination. Because following illumination, water represents your most vital resource, and your opportunity to obtain it is rapidly disappearing. Here's what the majority don't comprehend. When the electrical network fails, the water infrastructure has perhaps 6 to 12 hours before it begins malfunctioning too. Water processing facilities lose electricity, distribution stations cease, pressure diminishes, and suddenly that tap you've relied upon your complete life produces nothing. The water stronghold strategy is straightforward, but demands swift action. You're transforming your dwelling into a water storage center, using what you currently possess. Every sizable vessel becomes a tank. Fill your bathing tub. That's 30 to 50 gallons immediately. Fill every basin, every cooking pot, every container, every pail you possess. But here's the vital part. While you're gathering, you must be purifying, because even if your tap water flows presently, there's zero assurances remaining uncontaminated. Water processing facilities don't operate correctly without electricity. So every gallon you gather requires purification. Insert a water cleansing tablet into each vessel, or introduce a few drops of plain bleach. Simply 2 to 3 drops per gallon. This isn't regarding flavor. It's regarding not perishing from intestinal disease 3 days forward. Here's your numerical reality. You require 1 gallon per individual per day exclusively for consumption. Include cooking and fundamental cleanliness, and you're examining 1.5 to 2 gallons per individual daily. Possess a household of 4? You require 8 gallons per day at minimum. For a week duration outage, that's 56 gallons. Suddenly that bathing tub doesn't appear like excess. But the stronghold strategy extends beyond gathering. You require renewable sources. Establish precipitation collection using pails, waterproof sheets, anything with an uncontaminated surface. If you possess a water heating unit, that's another 30 to 50 gallons of emergency water. Simply remember to deactivate the input valve initially. The ready survivors I'm familiar with can obtain 100+ gallons of uncontaminated drinking water within the initial hour of an outage. While others are still determining what's occurring, they've already resolved their most vital survival requirement. Now, before we explore principle number 3, I must share something that could substantially improve your survival chances. Throughout this video, I'm providing you the fundamental principles that'll maintain you alive when the power terminates. But if you desire the comprehensive survival framework, including the precise supply inventory, detailed protocols, and sophisticated psychological methods I employ personally, I've assembled a thorough survival manual that extends considerably deeper than what I can address in one video. This isn't some standard emergency readiness pamphlet. This is the precise step-by-step system I've constructed after examining actual blackout situations, consulting disaster survivors, and testing these approaches myself. It includes the exact supply calculations for varying household sizes, the particular brands and types of equipment that genuinely function under stress, and the sophisticated psychological methods that keep households composed during prolonged outages. You can examine it at the link in the description. It's the identical system that's assisted thousands of households transform from powerless to ready. Because the truth is, when the lights extinguish for actual, you don't desire to be thinking this out as you go along. You desire a verified plan you can implement instinctively. All right, let's return to keeping you alive.
Principle number 3. Master food classification and power-free preparation before your refrigerator becomes a health hazard. Because when the electricity terminates, you've obtained a very limited window before your food inventory becomes your greatest problem. Here's the severe reality. Your refrigerator will preserve safe temperatures for perhaps 4 hours if you maintain it sealed. Your freezer might endure 24 to 48 hours if it's filled and you don't access it. Following that, you're examining a bacterial cultivation environment that could send your household to the medical facility. So, you must think like a combat medic. Classify everything. What requires consumption immediately? What can be maintained? What requires disposal before it harms you? First priority, prepared leftovers, dairy items, and anything containing mayonnaise. These spoil rapidly and can trigger serious food contamination. Utilize them initially or discard them. Second priority, raw meats, seafood, and chicken. Prepare these immediately if you possess the capability, or maintain them with salt if you're considering long duration. But here's where most individuals fail entirely. They possess no method to prepare without power. Your electric cooking surface is now simply a costly countertop ornament. Your microwave is deceased. Your coffee apparatus won't function. If you haven't arranged for this, you're preparing to discover what chilled legumes from a container tastes like for breakfast, midday meal, and evening meal. Power-free preparation isn't complex science, but it demands the correct tools. A portable propane cooking device with additional fuel containers is your greatest companion. These devices can heat water, prepare rice, warm soup, and even pan-fry eggs. Simply ensure you're utilizing them outside or in a properly ventilated location because toxic gas will eliminate you quicker than starvation. Solar preparation devices are another transformation most individuals disregard. Yes, they're slower than your traditional oven, but they function completely independent and can genuinely bake bread, roast meat, and cook stews using nothing except sunshine. I've prepared complete meals with one of these devices when the power was functioning simply to maintain practice. Here's a sophisticated suggestion. Establish a 72-hour meal strategy using exclusively shelf-stable foods and your alternative preparation methods. Rehearse it now while the power's functioning, because when the crisis occurs, you don't desire to be examining instruction guides by flashlight. Preserved goods become your foundation. Soups, stews, spicy dishes, vegetables, but include rice, pasta, and dried legumes for volume and energy. Peanut spread, crackers, and granola bars don't demand preparation at all. And here's something most individuals forget: comfort foods. When your world reverses upside down, recognizable tastes provide psychological comfort that's valuable beyond measure.
Because heat eliminates more Americans yearly than hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and lightning combined. When your AC terminates and temperatures climb, your house becomes an oven. Your daytime strategy: establish a heat obstruction. Secure all shades and window coverings. Utilize reflective materials like emergency blankets or aluminum foil to obstruct windows that receive direct sunshine. Seal your house during the day to maintain hot air exterior. But when the sun descends, reverse everything. Access windows on opposite sides of your dwelling to establish cross-ventilation. Utilize battery-powered fans to circulate air. Even a small breeze can make a 10-degree temperature feel tolerable. Here's a cooling technique most individuals don't understand: evaporative cooling. Suspend moist towels in front of accessible windows. As the air passes through, evaporation cools it down by several degrees. You can also establish ice packets using frozen vegetables or fill containers with water and freeze them while you still possess power. Your basement becomes your survival refuge in summer heat. Underground spaces remain substantially cooler, sometimes 20 to 30 degrees below outdoor temperatures. If you possess a basement, that's your retreat when temperatures become hazardous. Critical safety warning: never utilize charcoal grills, gas cooking surfaces, or kerosene warming devices indoors to combat cold. Toxic gas contamination eliminates silently and rapidly. Every winter blackout, emergency facilities fill up with households who made this fatal mistake. Principle number 5. Establish your communication connection before you're isolated from the world. Because in a blackout, information isn't simply power, it's survival. Your smartphone is probably your primary communication device. But here's the difficulty. Cellular towers operate on backup batteries that endure perhaps 8 to 24 hours without power. Following that, your phone becomes an expensive paperweight. Plus, even if towers are operating, networks get congested when everyone attempts to call or message concurrently. This is why intelligent preparers never depend on merely one communication approach. You require multiple redundant systems, and you require them ready to function immediately. First option, a battery-powered or hand-crank radio. Not for entertainment, for emergency information. NOAA weather radio, AM/FM stations, emergency transmission frequencies. These don't rely on cellular towers or internet connections. When everything else malfunctions, radio waves still transmit. But here's what most individuals overlook: bidirectional communication. Walkie-talkies with a reasonable range can connect you with household members, those nearby, or other prepared individuals in your location. Some models possess ranges of several miles and don't rely on any infrastructure whatsoever. For maintaining your phone functioning, solar chargers and hand-crank power banks are transformation devices. Solar chargers function even in overcast conditions, simply slower. Hand-crank chargers allow you to generate power manually. 15 minutes of cranking typically provides you sufficient energy for an emergency communication. Here's a sophisticated communication strategy. Establish a communication timetable with household members before any emergency occurs. Particular times to check in, particular methods to utilize. Backup meeting locations if you can't reach each other electronically. When disorder dominates, possessing a predetermined plan eliminates speculation and fear. Don't forget about your automobile. If it possesses fuel, it's a mobile communication center. Car radios can acquire signals from much farther away than handheld devices. Plus, you can charge phones using the 12-volt outlet while the engine operates. Paper backup is essential. Maintain a printed inventory of important phone numbers, household, friends, physicians, insurance companies, local emergency services. Don't depend exclusively on your phone's contact inventory. When batteries terminate or devices get damaged, paper still functions. For extreme situations, satellite communicators can transmit messages even when all local infrastructure is terminated. These aren't inexpensive, but they function anywhere on Earth and can genuinely be the difference between rescue and being isolated. Here's something most individuals never consider. Signal tools, whistles, mirrors, flares, even brilliant flashlights can attract attention when electronic communication malfunctions. A whistle blast transmits much farther than your voice and utilizes zero battery power. Principle number 6. Build your medical stronghold before illness and injury transform manageable problems into life-threatening emergencies. Because when the power is terminated, a simple laceration can become a serious infection and exhausting prescription medication can be fatal.
Let's begin with medications, because this is where individuals perish from completely avoidable causes. If you consume prescription drugs, insulin, cardiac medication, blood pressure medications, anything vital, you require backup cooling systems. Many medications deteriorate rapidly at ambient temperature, and a deceased refrigerator can genuinely be a fatality sentence. Battery-powered coolers or even high-quality thermal containers with ice packets can preserve proper temperatures for days.
But here's the professional suggestion. Rotate your medication inventory regularly. Always possess a 30-day backup inventory stored correctly and utilize the oldest initially while restocking with fresh inventory. Your first aid collection requires to extend way beyond fundamental bandages. Consider what injuries are most probable during a blackout. Lacerations from shattered glass, burns from candles or alternative heat sources, injuries from moving in the dark, and food contamination from deteriorated refrigerated items. Stock antiseptics, various sizes of bandages and gauze, burn treatment, pain relievers, anti-diarrhea medication, and antibiotics if you can obtain them. But here's what's genuinely vital. Understand how to utilize everything in your collection. A first aid collection you don't comprehend is simply expensive disorder. Cleanliness becomes a medical concern when normal systems cease. Without heated water and proper sanitation, bacterial infections multiply rapidly. Stock up on moist wipes, hand sanitizer, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and feminine cleanliness products. These aren't luxuries, they're medical necessities. Waste administration is something nobody desires to contemplate, but it's vital for preventing disease. If toilets cease flushing because water pumps malfunction, you require a strategy. Plastic bags, sawdust or absorption material, and a designated waste location away from your residing and food storage spaces. Mental health is a medical concern too. Prolonged blackouts establish enormous psychological stress. Depression, anxiety, and panic episodes can become serious medical emergencies. Possessing activities that diminish stress, books, games, musical instruments, art materials, isn't simply regarding entertainment, it's regarding preserving psychological stability. Here is a sophisticated medical strategy. Identify the nearest medical facilities and urgent care locations and understand their backup power capabilities. Some medical facilities possess generators that can operate for days. Others might endure only hours. In a serious emergency, this understanding could rescue a life. Pre-existing conditions demand special arrangement. If someone in your household requires oxygen therapy, dialysis, or other electrically powered medical equipment, you require backup strategies that don't rely on the network. This might signify portable oxygen concentrators, manual dialysis options, or pre-arranged transportation to facilities with reliable backup power. Principle number 7. Establish your security boundary before desperation transforms those nearby into threats. Because when civilization's surface disappears, the difference between predator and prey frequently comes down to preparation and perception. Here's an uncomfortable reality. In prolonged blackouts, criminal activity rates increase dramatically. Individuals get desperate. Normal social agreements deteriorate, and your prepared household becomes a target for those who didn't arrange ahead. But security isn't regarding transforming your dwelling into a fortress. It's regarding making yourself a difficult target, while preserving the capability to assist genuine neighbors in requirement. Physical security begins with your entry points. Deadbolts, security barriers, reinforced door structures. But power outages disable electronic security systems, so you're back to fundamentals. Manual locks, wooden door supports, and noise creators that alert you to intrusion attempts. Here's a psychological security strategy most individuals disregard. Controlled exposure. You desire to appear occupied and vigilant, but not affluent or overstocked. Dim lighting visible from outside indicates someone's dwelling but conserving resources. Brilliant lights everywhere announces, "We possess abundant supplies, come seize them." Your security boundary extends beyond your property boundary. Understand those nearby before emergencies occur. Who can you rely on? Who might become difficulties? Which houses possess elderly residents who might require assistance? Information is security, and community relationships are your early warning system. Noise discipline becomes vital. Generators, radios, even conversations can be detected much farther when ambient noise from traffic and air conditioners vanishes.
Sound transmits differently in blackout conditions, and advertising your activity levels can attract unwanted attention. But here's the most important security principle. Don't be the only prepared dwelling on your street. Instead of accumulating everything, assist a few trusted neighbors develop fundamental preparedness. A prepared neighborhood is more secure than one prepared dwelling surrounded by desperate individuals. Movement security matters too. If you require to venture outside, execute it during daylight when possible. Travel in pairs or groups. Vary your routes and timing. Avoid displaying supplies or equipment that advertises your preparedness level. Communication security is something most individuals never consider. Don't discuss your supply levels, generator fuel, or food stores on bidirectional radios or in conversations that might be detected. Operational security isn't excessive caution, it's intelligent risk administration. Here's a sophisticated security concept. Establish the illusion of multiple individuals, even if you're alone or possess a small household. Different voices on radios, varied lighting patterns, occasional movement near different windows. Predators prefer easy targets, and a dwelling that appears well defended gets passed over for easier opportunities. Principle number 8. Master resource multiplication before scarcity forces you into survival mode. Because the difference between flourishing and barely surviving is understanding how to make a little extend a considerable distance. Resource multiplication isn't regarding possessing unlimited supplies. It's regarding maximizing what you possess through intelligent usage, conservation, and creative repurposing. Let's begin with energy multiplication. One battery can power multiple devices if you're strategic regarding usage. LED lights utilize a fraction of the power of traditional bulbs. Hand crank flashlights generate power without consuming batteries. Solar lights charge during the day and provide illumination all night without any battery drain from your emergency supplies. But here's a multiplication technique most individuals never consider: heat capture and redistribution. That propane cooking device isn't exclusively for preparation, it's also a heat source. Prepare your meal, then utilize the residual heat to warm water for washing or consumption. Heat water in the largest pot you possess, then transfer portions into smaller containers that become personal heating devices for hours. Water multiplication techniques can extend your water supply dramatically. Gray water from washing dishes or hands can irrigate plants or flush toilets. Precipitation collection systems can multiply your water supply indefinitely. Even condensation from air conditioning units or dehumidifiers becomes usable water with proper filtration. Food multiplication strategies transform fundamental ingredients into multiple meals. One container of tomato sauce becomes pasta sauce, soup foundation, and pizza sauce. Rice dishes can extend meat portions to feed more individuals. Sprouting seeds establish fresh vegetables from stored dry goods, multiplying both nutrition and food volume. Here's a sophisticated multiplication principle. Cross-functional supplies. Every item in your emergency collection should serve multiple purposes. Adhesive tape repairs, secures, insulates, and marks. Plastic covering establishes vapor barriers, precipitation collection surfaces, and privacy screens. Blankets provide warmth, sound dampening, and light control. Skill multiplication is the ultimate force multiplier. Fundamental repair skills allow you to restore things instead of replacing them. Food preservation understanding transforms perishables into long-term storage. Medical training signifies you can address injuries instead of simply hoping they heal. Social multiplication signifies leveraging community resources through cooperation instead of competition. Sharing skills, tools, and understanding with trusted neighbors establishes a resource collection much larger than what any individual household can preserve alone. Energy conservation equals resource multiplication. Utilizing daylight instead of battery-powered lights, preparing multiple meals simultaneously to maximize fuel efficiency, clustering activities to minimize battery drain. Every unit saved is a unit available for more vital requirements later. Here's something most individuals never consider: psychological resource multiplication. Preserving morale and hope multiplies your household's capability to endure hardship. Games, music,
Storytelling and preserving routines establish psychological resources that sustain individuals through prolonged difficulties.
Because understanding when to shelter in position, when to relocate, and when to signal for assistance can be the difference between surviving and becoming another casualty statistic. Most individuals think blackout survival is simply regarding waiting it out, but prolonged power outages escalate through predictable phases, and your response requires to escalate accordingly. Phase 1 is the initial 24 hours. This is when you implement principles 1 to 8, secure lighting, water, food, temperature control, and communications. Most individuals think this is temporary and preserve normal routines, but intelligent survivors utilize this time to arrange for longer-term situations. Phase 2 activates around day 2 to 3. This is when supply chain disruptions become obvious. Supermarkets empty, fuel stations close, individuals start getting desperate. Your protocols shift from preparation to conservation mode. Ration everything. Minimize energy usage. Strengthen security measures. Phase 3 begins around day 4 to 7. Social order begins deteriorating. Criminal activity increases. Municipal services become unreliable. This is when you require to determine, shelter in position, or relocate to a safer environment. Your escalation decision structure should be predetermined. If violence increases in your location, what's your trigger point for departing? If water supplies become contaminated, where do you proceed? If medical emergencies exceed your capability, how do you obtain assistance? Evacuation bags become vital in Phase 3. These aren't camping backpacks. They're carefully assembled survival collections that allow you to relocate rapidly while preserving life support capabilities, water purification, shelter, food, medical supplies, communication devices, and important documents, all in grab-and-go format. But here's what most evacuation advice gets incorrect. You require multiple evacuation strategies: primary route, secondary route, and emergency route for when everything malfunctions. Rehearse these routes during normal times. Understand the terrain, the resources available, and potential obstruction points where you might get trapped. Signaling protocols escalate too. Phase 1 might be messaging household members. Phase 2 demands radio communication and predetermined check-in schedules. Phase 3 might signify emergency flares, signal mirrors, or satellite communicators to request rescue. Medical escalation protocols are life and death determinations. When do you attempt hazardous travel to reach medical facilities? How do you establish if someone's condition demands evacuation versus remaining put? These determinations can't be executed in the intensity of the moment. They demand pre-planning and clear criteria. Here's a sophisticated escalation concept: supply caches. Pre-position supply reserves at strategic locations between your dwelling and evacuation destinations. Concealed supplies that allow you to resupply during evacuation or provide fallback resources if you can't reach your primary destination. Community escalation involves neighboring households functioning together as situations deteriorate. Shared security, resource pooling, and coordinated responses. But this only functions if relationships and protocols are established before the crisis occurs. The most difficult escalation determination is understanding when to abandon your prepared position, your dwelling, your supplies, your comfort zone. But sometimes remaining becomes more hazardous than departing. Possessing predetermined criteria for this determination removes emotion from a life or death selection. Listen, we've addressed 9 principles that could rescue your life when the lights extinguish. But watching this video isn't sufficient. Understanding without action is simply entertainment. And when the power malfunctions for actual, you won't possess time to determine this out on the fly. Here's your assignment. Select 3 principles from this video and implement them this week. Not eventually, this week. Test your flashlight setup.
Calculate your water storage capability. Rehearse preparation without power, because the time to discover your strategy doesn't function isn't during the emergency.
Remember that comprehensive survival manual I mentioned earlier? It's obtained everything we discussed today, plus dozens of additional strategies, supply inventories, and actual world situations you can rehearse with your household. The link's in the description. And honestly, if this video has opened your eyes to how unprepared you might be, that manual could be the greatest investment you execute this year. Share this video with individuals you care about, because survival isn't a solo activity. The more prepared individuals in your community, the safer everyone becomes. Press that approval button if this information was valuable to you, and subscribe for more content that could genuinely rescue your life. Because when the power extinguishes, and it will extinguish, you'll be ready. While others fear, you'll implement. While others improvise, you'll execute proven strategies. The difference between disorder and control is preparation, and you now possess the roadmap. Stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll encounter you in the next one.